Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It's Monday. Up and at 'em. It's December 2nd. And like I say, if you're working Monday through Friday, better start shagging your ass. So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, I thought what we talk about today is when to back away from a job and, reconfigure how you're approaching it and what you're doing with it. And this is real handy if you got two guys, but you can still do it with one. You know, it's just going to take you a little longer, but stay tuned, get dressed, and get your coffee ready, and we'll get started here. So, welcome back to the channel. If you didn't already know it, my name is Eric, and this is the weekday Monday through Friday. Today is Monday, December 2nd. So, what are we talking about today? Well, it happens to the best of us, and that is we get so close to what we're trying to work on and get frustrated because we can't figure out what's actually happening. And the tendency to overlook the simple things have already gone by, right? And here you spent hours and you're still no further ahead. And I have to do this quite a bit with Claude. He'll get too close to something and frustrated. And the minute you get frustrated or upset with any piece of equipment, game over. And what I do in the shop is I pull him away from whatever he's working on. If I see where he's getting frustrated with something, it's step away, leave it, and then he and I will talk, and I will talk out loud like a sounding board. He'll tell me what he's done so far, what he hasn't done, and where he's at, and why he doesn't understand why it doesn't work. And a lot of times, I'll be honest with you, he's answering his own questions. He's just using me for a sounding board. But with him talking out loud about that problem that he's working on, a lot of times you get that aha moment, right? Of shit, I didn't do this or I didn't check that. And I'll tell you, some of them are just simply checking the basics of doing a compression check on something. And, because you're taking the owner's word that the machine runs good. It's only in here for, a minor service or something. But that's what we do when it comes to equipment and customers' machines and stuff. Is the first thing we want to make sure is that it is running and driving good. Okay? If it's not running and driving good, there's no sense putting a lot of money into it. Unless that's what the customer wants, like on the older tractors that maybe their father or grandfather owned. But for lawnmowers and stuff, that normally isn't the case, You can get in over your head quickly on a lawnmower. Push mowers are just as lively. On a good day, I can sell a push mower used for around $50, $60. So even if it's given to us and I spend an hour on it, we're just breaking even and getting that money back into the shop, right? If I haven't got anything else to do, then that's a great time to do it because that just keeps money coming in. But you need to develop like a thing of where if you start becoming frustrating with something, you need to back away and go do something else for a while. And a lot of times when you're doing something else, you're still thinking about that piece of equipment that you just left. And stuff will come to you if you're open-minded about it. And that means you start running down through a checklist of things that you've already done to that machine, and then stepping back and knowing that this is the way we should do it. We should have compression, fire, fuel and air, etc. And because if you don't, you're going to end up spending a lot of hours that are non-billable because you can't bill your customer for, doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. If you're not getting the right result, you need to change something, right? You're not doing something that needs to be done. Period. So that's one of the best traits you can have is the ability to step away before you get too frustrated, go work on something else, and still mull over what's going on in the other one. If you have a couple things that you haven't tried yet on it and you want to try, why not? But every piece of equipment has to have the four things to get it to run. If it lacks anything of the four, then no matter what you do, it's still not going to run, right? But the trait and the ability to step away is great. And it's not just for small engine, it's for anything in your life. Is the ability to step away when things are becoming very frustrated, or the anxiety levels going up, or the anger is going up. Any of those three, you need to stop. Take a few steps back, find out what's causing those issues, and if you can resolve it, resolve it. If you can't, you need to put a stop to those feelings and those issues that are coming up. Because I know with me, if you get me flustered, it affects everything in my life, So if it's only natural, you're human. If you find yourself becoming frustrated, we all do. And it doesn't matter whether you're young or old. The older you get, the more frustrated you get, as far as I'm concerned, because you have just enough knowledge of how to do stuff. But there's so much stuff out there to learn, even like an old dog like me. But the young guys, that are getting into it right now, and I've been seeing this in the groups, and I think it's great. It's encouraging that these guys are doing total motor rebuilds, tearing it right down to the base and then building it back up. And what is that teaching you? That's teaching you the basics of everything that goes on, how that motor functions. And if you can take a motor, and let's say it needs bad compression in it, and you do a complete tear down and replace the crank, all your gaskets, valves, the whole 9 yards, putting it all back together. And then you have a really good running machine. You need to pat yourself on the back. I'm seeing it more in like the four-wheelers, the snowmobiles, because like the snowmobiles, you don't get too many miles on them, and they recommend that you rebuild it, and especially the rings because it runs so hot, because most of them are two-stroke. So let me how do you guys deal with it? When you become frustrated when you're working on something in your shop or in your garage, do you just continue to, go down that path and get the same results? Or are you walking away and doing something else and then coming back to it when you're in a different state of mind, when you're not starting to get pissed at it or upset or... So the next thing I wanted to talk about, Amos, I still can't get my head around how they let you go in 5 days. What the hell? 5 days after my surgery, I was still strapped down to a bed. And I was tasting my first food, which is ice cream. Up until that point, all I could have was water, ice water. And I'm thinking 5 days. Wow. They say that if it's not a super hard thing, it's 5 to 6 days out, right? And I know in my case, mine was almost 4 weeks, 3.5 weeks. I know they had complications during surgery. They almost lost me. My blood pressure dropped. I had a internal bleed with warfarin. It's a blood thinner, and they had to keep putting me back onto the machine to keep me going. And I think it was like 8 or 9 quarts of blood that they had to get into me. See, because they had the cardiac crew, and then you have the other surgical crew, and they all work together in unison on. But you got the cardiac guys know the heart, right? But then your surgical group will jump in too if you have a bleed and blood pressure issues. If your blood pressure starts dropping rapidly, that means you're losing blood somewhere. Okay, something is not right in Denmark. But the idea that you got out in 5 days and I was in there for almost 3.5, 4 weeks, I never even got the chest tubes pulled until that last Monday when they released me on Tuesday. And to this day, right now, I have a gauze with one piece of tape, and I'm soaking that gauze 3 to 4 times a day where I'm still getting drainage out those 4 holes where the drain tubes were in my chest. And they told me it's common that you will get some drainage, but not to put anything on it that would seal it. Just a piece of 4x4 with a piece of medical tape across it, and just allow that to soak it up so that you're not having your t-shirts soak up in the process as well. I feel like a very lucky individual that they caught it when they did, because it was a dead man walking basically. They told me less than 7 days from when they did the surgery, had I not had intervention, I probably would have been dead. I would have had a massive heart attack, and they couldn't have brought you back if they didn't have you right in the surgical group. See, the closest hospital that does any of that stuff for like me is Syracuse, and that's 2.5 hours away. They do it in Plattsburgh, and that's 2 hours and 20 minutes away, I think. And then Burlington, of course, is farther away yet. With Upstate Medical in Syracuse, I mean, they did a phenomenal job. I mean, I had so many nurses that were waiting on me. And you have to get over that shyness because, they're bathing you twice a day, changing all your dressings, because I had dressings on my legs where they took the veins out, and then I had dressings coming down where they cut me open in my chest. And then they had dressings that were around the drain tubes coming out just below my rib cage. The warning signs for me, just so that this might help somebody else. For the last just probably 4 or 5 months, I've been having chest pains on and off. And I just attribute it to, pulled muscle, this or that. And a lot of times, the chest pain will come on about the same time. Like in the evening, when I get home from work, I started having chest pains. And I used to tell my wife, I said, it's because you're stressing me out. But I had that. And then I noticed this summer, I did not have the energy that I normally had and even just trying to feed the cows. What a chore. You're forcing yourself, pushing yourself to do what you can do. When the year before, you didn't think nothing of it, So your lack of energy, your chest feeling like sharp pains, or the other times you just felt like there was a lot of pressure on my chest. And I really didn't seek. I did go to my primary and told her, about the pain that I was having in my chest. And we decided that it was a tear of the muscle of the rib cage that was causing the pain and the sharpness, when in fact it was actually the heart telling me, I can't breathe, I gotta have blood circulating, right? And then, she put me on prednisone to try to help, but it didn't do anything. Following week, I come down with pneumonia. And I went to an after hours clinic because my doctor's offices were closed, right? So I went to that after hours and they found that I had pneumonia in one of the lobes and started me on antibiotics. But the nurse practitioner in there said, Eric, I think it's cardiac. I think you need to go to the ER. And I'm like, no, I mean, this is what my regular doctor and I think it is. But this is something, an add-on, right? And she said, well, that's up to you, but I really recommend that you go to the ER and have them give you a check head to toe on it. But she said, I'll send the script over for your antibiotics, all the information over to your primary doctor. I said, okay. But I went another week and a half, and the antibiotics had run out. And I actually was feeling worse. So I called up my primary again. I said, look, Nicole, I said, things are not getting any better. There's something more going on. And I think, in all honesty, I think it's cardiac. You know, we keep saying it's not, but I think it's cardiac is giving me the issue. So she said, well, let's get you in, get you an EKG. So I went in that morning and they hooked me all up, put the EKG monitor on me, and let it run a few minutes there. And I just put my shirt back on and got up and left. Got back to the shop, and she called her and she said, Eric, what are you doing right now? Do you have someone that can drive you to the hospital? And I said, yeah, I guess so. Why? She said, I want your ass at the hospital now. Get to the ER and go north, and they know you're coming. Go. So I told Claude, I said, look, I'm going to take my phone with me. When we get to the ER, just drop me off out front. I'll walk in, and I'll give you a shout when they get done doing all their stuff. The minute I walked in, and the one nurse spotted me. She said, are you Eric? And I said, yes, I am. She said, come with me now. Took me into one of the bigger rooms right next to where the doctor was. Started hooking me up to all these different monitors, starting IVs. And the doctor asked me, he said, do you know what's going on? And I said, no, I don't. So I assumed that you must have found something in the EKG. And he said, yeah, your rhythm isn't good. It's terrible. And we've already sent the rhythm to Syracuse, to the cardiac doctors that are there. And they want you prepped and to Syracuse as soon as possible. So they spent the next hour at the local hospital getting me all prepped. And then the ambulance crew come in. And they lifted me onto the gurney and took me out. And I went for a 2.5 hour ride on my back. And the most uncomfortable ride I ever had. But when we got there, the normal procedure is you have to come in and then one of your EMTs goes up and says, this is what we have, blah, blah, blah. But the cardiac surgeons had already cleared all that ahead of time. They knew we were coming. So it was right up to the 8th floor for the cardiac surgery. I didn't have to wait down in the ER or nothing. I didn't even have to go into the ER. Right straight up to the 8th floor. And the doctor came out and said, you know what the issue is, right, Eric? I said, I don't. I said, I'm a little bit nervous. And he said, well, you need open heart surgery. You've got a blockage to 99%. Your heart is in rough shape. And we're hoping we can catch it so that it can be fixed. It can, regenerate itself. But right now you're running it right around 31% of a 50 of how much blood is being pumped to your other organs. And we need to change that now. So he said, give me a few minutes. We're finishing up on another patient that had already had it done but had complications and come back. So we just had to do some fine stuff to him. And then we're just going to get you right in. So they were prepping me out in that room anyways. They were catheterizing me, setting up all the IVs. They, taping everything down that needed to be taped. But it was 8.5 hours on the table. They kept me in an induced coma for the first day and a half. So I was still intubated the first day and a half after surgery. And finally the doctor decided that he was comfortable with the numbers to take me off the machine. And so they did. They gave medication to get me out of the coma. And then they also pulled that tube. So that was like day 2. And you're just telling me 5 days, Amos? Holy moly. I don't know. Like I say, I'm thankful to be here. It's a life-changing event, and I would hope, I would not wish this on my worst enemy. I've never had this kind of pain before. It's tolerable here. In the mornings are the worst for me because my back and my front are hurting, and my leg will swell up from, it's still black and blue and stuff, and that was from weeks ago. And they said that you will. So they have me on Lasix too, so that it's like a water pill to get water out of your system so you don't swell up like a balloon. But somebody was looking out after me. But Amos, I want to hear more about what you did. You said you walked a lot to get out. What did you have to follow up once you were out? I mean, you must have had to follow up with doctors and everything. Because my cardiac team, even right now, this vest is doing an EKG 24/7 in this little black box. This little black box is hooked to a wireless unit that will take everything off from this unit and will push it to my cardiac doctors in Syracuse so that they can see the rhythm at any given time. And if I have any issues, if the button goes off and I start it off and it doesn't zap me, the doctors will also know that buzzer went off, and they can look at where did it go off and then see what's going on, And that's why I have to wear this for 3 months, because they said, A, your heart is really weak, and B, that if your rhythm gets out of whack, you live alone. Right now, my wife's in a mental health hospital because I can't take care of her. By the time you get to the hospital, you might not make it. If you're wearing this vest 24/7 like you're supposed to, this will shock you and get you back into the right rhythm. You're still going to have to go back to the ER and cardiac doctor, but at least you'll still be alive. So anyhow, I'm going to wrap this up for today. I'm going to start getting on topics we can stay on for a while instead of talking about me. But I know there's a number of you that have been asking questions I hadn't answered about the surgery and warning signs. And like I say, I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. But you guys that have to work today, shag your ass, get dressed. I know you already have your coffee. And we'll catch you here bright and early tomorrow morning where we will spend the whole time on something to do with working on your small engine repair stuff. All right, guys. Have a great day.